Common Core Support Coach reflects a careful analysis of the prerequisites of key grade level standards. Key to the philosophy behind Common Core Support Coach is the recognition that math skills and concepts are part of a progression that begins early in students' lives and continues beyond their current grade level with increased complexity and depth. There are 3 big shifts in math with the Common Core State Standards, and the lessons in Support Coach and these shifts are attended to in various parts of the lessons. The first shift, focus, has to do with targeting essential understandings with math concepts. The second shift, coherence, has to do with understanding previous concepts and being able to connect those to current concepts that are being studied. The third shift, rigor, has to do with applying and synthesizing mathematical thoughts, understanding the topic and not just relying on procedure to solve a problem. The goal of Support Coach is not fluency in mathematical practice. That is the point of Common Core Coach Math, also known as C3. Support Coach is the soft side of a standard, and C3 will take the deeper dive. The key features of Support Coach Math include a full-color student edition, 20 lessons in all, a robust teacher manual with detailed instructions and reduced annotated student edition pages, a separate assessment booklet with lesson quizzes, 2 performance tasks for each of the 5 domains, and 2 practice tests. Also, there are colorful avatars that act as coaches for the students that are strategically placed throughout their student edition. Who might the typical audience be for Common Core Support Coach? Well, Common Core Support Coach is aimed at students requiring strategic intervention, specifically those students missing a critical foundation for grade level understandings. Some of those students who typically struggle might be ELL students, SPED students, or students who are just math challenged. Support Coach can also be for the teachers who are struggling with the expectations of the Common Core State Standards in math as well. There are multiple implementation options with Support Coach. It can be used alongside Common Core Coach C3. It can be used as a supplemental resource with another core product or program. It can be used as a support curriculum for ELL, SPED students, RTI, or for summer school or even an after-school program. Remember, it is not a comprehensive program as it does not cover all the math standards. These are some of the instructional highlights of Support Coach Math. The grade level progressions are placed into instructional action with linked sections in each lesson. Each on-level standard begins with 2 prerequisite concepts which can often be from the previous grade. The instructional model used for each of the 20 lessons is the gradual release of responsibility. Each lesson is mapped to the Common Core standards, and the lessons themselves work in a modular way so the teacher can pick and choose which lesson to do depending on the needs of the students. And finally, colorful avatars act as coaches to model how the student should be thinking about the math concept during the lesson. Notice that in the table of contents, each lesson has 3 sections in it. The lesson sections are color-coded like a stoplight, and each section has a different purpose. The red for plug in and the yellow for power up. These first 2 parts of a lesson provide students with a review and practice of the prerequisite concept necessary for success at the targeted grade level. These 2 lessons will always be 2 pages long. The third part of the lesson, designated by the green arrow, stands for Ready to Go, and it will always be the on-grade level part of the lesson, and it will always be 6 pages long. The components of a plug-in lesson are always the same and address the 3 shifts in math demanded by the Common Core. First, the teacher will help students to build some background knowledge about the concept they will be learning, which addresses the shift of coherence. Then the teacher introduces and models the concept, introducing vocabulary, allowing for discussion, and modeling the application of the concept. All of these components of the lesson address the shift of focus and rigor. Practice problems are then provided for the students while the teacher takes this time to assess and see if there are still problems with understanding that may need to be addressed. Sidebars are not boilerplated. They are there if the lesson warrants it. Materials, ELL, Spotlight on Standards for Mathematical Practice, Focus on Fluency, Common Errors, and Additional Practice are some of the various sidebars that can be included in a lesson. The plug-in and power-up are the foundational understanding portion of each lesson. They can go back 1 or 2 previous grades and will map back to the Ready to Go, which is the grade level part of the lesson. Across the top of the grid are listed the lesson objectives, which are the key instructional goals of every lesson, the concepts and skills, which list the CCSS alignments, and finally, the vocabulary, which will be addressed in the lesson, is listed and defined. Each portion of the lesson, plug in, power up, and ready to go, will follow the same format. The teacher will use the information provided in the background knowledge to set up the lesson and assess student preparedness. The standards for mathematical practice notes are supports for the teacher at point of use and can help develop strong mathematical behaviors in the students. Prompts are provided in case students are struggling with the initial work. Often in the materials list, something will be used to give the students a kinesthetic opportunity. ELL help might be provided as a sidebar as well. This is called the do part of the lesson when students will begin actual practice of the new skill. As first, the teacher demonstrates and students follow along and do the same thing. They then begin their own practice while the teacher moves around the room, checking and observing their work and providing action or help when needed. Observation and action tables outline how teachers can address specific student needs during independent practice. The Spotlight on Mathematical Language provides a series of prompts using appropriate mathematical language and terms that are designed to elicit similar mathematical language from students. These sidebars can vary from lesson to lesson and are not consistent. They are provided if the lesson warrants it. The power-up lesson is still part of the prerequisite skills necessary before we get to the grade level portion of the lesson. It has all the same components of the plug-in portion of the lesson, but the objectives, concepts, and skills and key vocabulary will be different. Again, the Standards for Mathematical Practice sidebar provides embedded professional development on those standards. The list of materials will be different for the power-up portion of the lesson. The sidebars will also vary, but support for English language learners is throughout, and mathematical discourse, such as sentence starters and prompts, are outlined to help promote discussion. As the teacher moves the students into the third and final part of the lesson, the Ready to Go portion, which is recognized by the green color coding, the lesson structure will change slightly. This part of the lesson is now on grade level. The teacher will still build background knowledge and introduce and model, but a lesson link will be provided in order to promote the idea of coherence for the students, helping them to see the link between the prerequisite skills they just worked on and this new portion of the lesson. The Ready to Go portion of the lesson also has independent practice and 2 full pages devoted to problem solving. The first reference to the upcoming quiz is provided in this portion of the lesson as well. This again shows the Ready to Go portion of the lesson with different objectives, different skills and concepts, the materials needed for this lesson, the build background knowledge as well as introduce and model, prompts and sentence starters to aid in holding a class discussion, and finally, the lesson link, which connects the foundational skills from the plug-in and power-up portion of the lesson to the on-level standard in the Ready to Go section. The Support Coach avatar model appears in the Ready to Go portion of the lesson to model exemplary student thinking, questioning, and problem solving. The Ready to Go section of the lesson often furnishes an opportunity for students to work together to build a firm base for the on-level standard. To help support independent practice, teachers are supplied with suggestions for helping students who are struggling with specific items. Full support is provided for modeling the 4-step method for problem solving in the context of each lesson. Suggestions for additional practice are provided for each lesson. Alongside instruction, teachers are alerted to common errors they might encounter in student work or discussion. Suggestions are included for addressing the misconceptions that might cause these errors. 2 full pages are dedicated to problem solving, giving students the opportunity to apply their newly acquired conceptual understandings and procedural fluencies to contextualize problem situations. Prompts are provided to promote discussion. The Spotlight on Mathematical Practice box is also still provided, and finally, a 3-part observation action table can be used to determine whether students need more time with the lesson content or can move on to the lesson quiz. The separate assessment booklet contains lesson quizzes, 2 performance tasks for each of the 5 domains, and 2 practice tests. The lesson quizzes are multiple choice and open-ended and always 2 pages. The 2 performance tasks for a given domain have a task-specific rubric. The first of the 2 tasks is a bit easier than the second, which allows teachers to differentiate instruction on performance task practice. Practice Test 1 can be administered before students begin the lesson in the Student Edition in order to allow you to establish a baseline measure of students' mathematics proficiency. You can then use Practice Test 2 to measure students' progress after completing the program. There are 50 total items on the practice test. 25% are written at level 1, 50% at level 2, and 25% at level 3. This shows an example of a lesson quiz which contains multiple choice and short answer questions. This shows the 2 versions of a performance task, the first, or A, being less rigorous than B. Common Core Support Coach Math has the same problem-solving format as Common Core Coach, or C3. Both are designed to meet the needs of students and teachers as they face the upcoming demands of the Common Core state standards.